Here.
Davis. Godez.
Here.
Trotter.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak to us about any item that is not on our agenda? Ma'am, please come up and give us your name and address, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
All right. My name is Kathy Thisson. I live at 1124 Bennett Avenue. And I just wanted to, I believe we have a serious problem with citizens not only leaving cars on the streets, but motorcycles, rafts, trailers, campers, some of which I believe people are living in, RVs, snowmobiles, and even trash cans on the streets for weeks and months at a time. I live 2 doors down from Linwood Cemetery Trailhead, where the problem is magnified. We all know that Docks is one of the most visited tourist destinations in town. When I moved there almost 30 years ago, I was really surprised how many people visited Docks grave. And now, between the purchase of the infamous gun and the Dock Holiday Museum, it seems that parking problems have worsened. Between Docks grave and how many single-family homes have added apartments in the neighborhood, at times it's impossible to park. On several occasions, if I've seen a car on the street for more than 3 days, I've called code enforcement. I wonder sometimes if someone has fallen, had a medical emergency, or gotten hurt one way or another on the trail, especially in the winter. In the past, I have called code enforcement on a city councilman and an attorney. If these people, who I presume know the code, don't respect it and follow it, how can we expect others to? To help alleviate the problem, maybe one solution could be to remind people of the parking code by occasionally putting a flyer on the rafts, trailers, campers, RVs, and trash cans to remind them of the code. Or secondly, like the recent informative articles concerning the bridge, we could have weekly or even monthly articles in the newspaper on our city code. For example, there could be articles listing different municipal codes or regulations concerning smoking, loud music, loitering, soliciting, speed limits on side streets, where to put the trash cans, when to put the trash cans out, dogs barking, picking up after your pet, not just dumping it in somebody else's trash can, cats roaming neighborhoods, keeping pets on a leash, construction hours, and of course, parking. As developers and homeowners continually add apartments or homes in every nook and cranny possible, our parking problems are only going to get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am.
Hello, my name is Linda English. I live at 409 West Bank Road here in Glenwood. And I'm working currently with the committee to help keep Colorado Mountain College affordable. You have some materials that we placed at your spots there tonight. I appreciate the time here just to give kind of a brief explanation of what Colorado Mountain College's 4B ballot measure is and the meaning behind it. So first, I guess the question is, are you all familiar with the Gallagher Amendment? That looks like a yes. Okay, great, because that would have taken more than 3 minutes to explain that, so that's awesome. So CMC's ballot measure is asking to retain property tax revenues at the same level that they currently are. So if 4B had been in place currently as the Gallagher Amendment ratcheted down this year their tax rate, it would have meant a $3 decrease for from CMC's tax mill levy, a $3 residential decrease in property tax per $100,000. CMC, through this ballot measure, is asking to retain that $3. So not to increase taxes, but to keep the taxes the same as they were previously. So that's where you'll see in your materials that there's no residential tax increase. This will allow CMC to keep current services as they are and not have to face major reductions in services. If what the 7.96 tax rate reduction to 7.2 this year through Gallagher meant a $2.8 million reduction in property tax revenues for CMC. If the Front Range growth, which is causing these reductions, continues, the estimate is that that will be an even greater reduction the next time around, and that will be on top of the 2.7 CMC will then, is estimating, could be facing another 3.9, so, that's cumulative. So therefore, in order to maintain services as are, we are asking that those be kept, not to increase taxes, but just to keep the same level of revenue as is. So currently, CMC, of course, the mission is access, affordability, quality, and a student right now, an in-district student, can get a bachelor's degree for under $10,000. The third lowest in the nation. Also, employers can send in-district students for further training, et cetera, for as little as $65 a credit hour. CMC is a very strong community asset, and we would love to have the endorsement of City Council. I don't know if that's legally possible or not, but something to consider. I'd also like to ask Mary Ann Virgili to come up and say a few words on behalf of the Glenwood Springs Chamber in relation to this measure.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Mary Ann Virgili, and I live at 38 Spring Loop in Carbondale, Colorado. The Glenwood Springs Chamber Board of Directors unanimously voted to support 4B, and as you may know, the college was born out of a chamber committee 50 years ago. So it's kind of come full circle. The chamber's been there for the college has been there for the chamber, and I think one main reason we support this initiative is, well, there are a few reasons, but one is economic development. We talk about economic development. We have a 4-year institution right in our little community, and we have the administrative offices for that institution, which is pretty significant. And in order for the college to maintain the access to post-secondary education and to maintain the extremely low tuition, we really need 4B to pass. That would ensure that. Another thing I think to consider is many of our police, the police academy is at the college, our police, our firefighters, nurses, teachers are educated at CMC, so we really support it. I think also for the city, I know the fire district is considering some funding constraints, and it is impacted too by the Gallagher Amendment. So this election could give us a framework to combat some of those problems that the city has next year. So we ask for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to us about something not on our agenda? All right, seeing none, I will close that and announce that the only agenda change we will have this evening is consent agenda item 14C is going to be pulled to be considered separately, primarily just to allow some citizens to make public comment on that item. All right, at this point, is there any council comments anyone would like to make? Go ahead, Catherine.
I should press my button. The first comment I would like to make is that I would just like to recognize the passing of a member of one of our boards and commissions, Jan Ward, who was a member of our Transportation Commission, recently passed away, and I just want to send our condolences to her family. I appreciate her service on our Transportation Commission, and she was a valuable voice for, particularly for the ADA folks, you know, for disabilities, and trying to make sure that we were well aware of their needs. And she was a very valued member of our community. She did a lot of knitting and a lot of other good works, in addition to her time at the Transportation Commission. So I would just like to express our condolences to her family. The other thing I would just like to mention is that for those of you who may not know, the Basalt Underpass is going to be officially open on October 31st. It's currently in place and in use, and that has provided a very safe route for those people traveling from one side of Highway 82 to the other in Basalt. It's been a long time coming, and I know Basalt is very proud of that, and they should be commended for all the work that they've done on that, and just wanted to say congratulations to them.
Thanks, Kathy. Todd?
So I don't know if it's appropriate to comment on the CMC 4B ballot question, but I think it's one of our best assets in this town. I mean, to have a college in town that provides the services that they do is huge for a town of this size, and for a valley like this to have access to that type of education here. So I don't know, I know they had asked us about a council endorsement, if you will, and I don't know when or how we discuss that from here. I always hate to do this stuff on the run, but I think it'd be maybe appropriate if we did have that discussion, maybe for the next meeting, come back with a decision, because
It's going to be kind of
when
late.
you,
It won't be kind of late
yeah,
by the next
ballots
meeting.
is that too late? I know I've got my ballot in the mail.
Yeah, I think the next meeting will, well, ballots are out. The next meeting's Thursday before the Tuesday election.
Still, it's a little late. But yeah, Todd, I would echo your sentiments on that.
mean,
CMC is a very valuable part of our community, and, as far as workforce training and things like that, we would be in a world of hurt without that.
Yeah.
Just procedurally, there's no way for us to pass a resolution of endorsement this evening. We would have to hold a special meeting to do that.
I mean, if it's, the council is all in agreement that this is something that they would like to support, I think, certainly you could, in concept, approve a resolution if that would be helpful to them, and I can draft it in the next day for the mayor's signature. I just don't know if everybody's in the same place or not with that specific language in front of them.
Or specifically looking at me.
Oh, sorry. It's because you're the only one with a beard, and people with beards aren't trustworthy.
And remember, it's not paranoia when they really are out to get you.
I mean, I would like for us to do it, if everyone were in agreement. I mean, and if we're not, I don't want to get into
Right.
it's not on the schedule.
The heads are going like this.
Yeah.
I would be supportive.
Yeah, so if we could, we have a 5-0.
I would love for them to be able to put in whatever ad they're gonna run in any paper that we are supportive, whatever that means, legally or in spirit.
Is that okay, Carlos?
Yeah,
We need
yeah,
a-
why don't you just, so they can say that the, city council approved the resolution, just move to draft a resolution for the mayor's signature supporting ballot for 4B.
I would move to draft a resolution for the mayor to sign on behalf of the Glenwood Springs City Council, supporting ballot issue 4B for a yes vote for CMC.
A second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries
Thank
unanimously.
We'll get,
Thanks.
try to get something out to the mayor to sign tomorrow, but they can start running it in an ad that council was unanimously in support.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, any further council comments from anyone else? I would like to echo Catherine's comments about Jan Ward. I always appreciated her perspective and efforts with respect to the Transportation Commission. And I would like to extend my personal condolences to her family. All right, at this point, we will go to the consent agenda. I would request a motion to approve the consent agenda items A, B, D, and E.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, D, and E. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question. All right, now, agenda item 14C is the approval of the Tom Sullivan Memorial Field sign. It's my understanding that somebody would like to make some comments to us. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and come on up.
Need to start with a presentation, or we just go?
Do we need to state our address in this
Um,
part of it?
Just your names.
Just your name
Okay,
is fine.
Ashley Moffett.
Angie Anderson.
First off, I just want to thank you guys for the initial approval of renaming Glenwood Park, Sullivan Field at Glenwood Park. I don't know if you saw Tom's thank you in the paper, but he was truly moved, and it led to a very special component and part of our reunion, which was a tremendous success. I think we had over 200 people between girls and families and parents, and the Sullivan family was overwhelmed, and I think they expressed to us that it was one of the first days since his diagnosis that they were able to laugh and smile and really cut loose for a day. And then thank you this evening for approving John Toffer's design. We understand that the Parks Department is moving towards a more uniform approach with all of the park signage, and we appreciate that you see the uniqueness in naming the field after Tom and having a unique sign that better represents him. And most importantly, our design concept is, as you saw, we've got the plans, we've got the structurals, we've got a contractor, we've got the boulder picked out, and it's going to be privately funded. So we're ready to break ground upon approval and hopefully have this done by Thanksgiving, so we can have an official park dedication before the end of the year.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I would bring it back to council for a motion.
I would move to approve the Sullivan Field Memorial sign design and installation as indicated in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right,
We have a brief discussion, real brief.
sure.
So I actually wanted to thank Brian for kind of bringing this back to us and raising attention that this was going on, because over the years, we've had items of different types of memorials, different types of things that show up in our parks, and I think each one deserves its own special, unique look. I'm for this. I like this idea, but I do appreciate the fact that we're paying attention to what's showing up in our parks, bringing it back to council if it looks at all like, hey, this is something that really needs to be, handled at this level, and I think things like memorials do. And so I appreciate, Brian, you bringing this to us, letting us, have this, if you will, have this time with this issue, and not just having different items randomly show up in our parks. So I like the idea of having that consistency. This is a special issue, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Any further discussion?
I'll just say real quick, I think there's been conversation in the Parks and Rec Commissions for the last 6 months about standardizing this and signs and kind of branding Glenwood.
Right.
And, this for two reasons. One, we haven't quite figured out what the standard sign looks like, so you got in under the wire. But so on a technicality, awesome. But also, somebody at the last Rec Commission, Parks and Rec Commission meeting made a comment of, this is a special field. The field itself is memorial, and this is a naming and a name plate. It's not for the field. It is a field. It's not a bench.
Right.
And so, there can be special exceptions, especially when it goes so far and above the design standard of anything we would have. It's really a unique asset, and it's going to be a special work of art in its own. That's going to supersede any standard sign designs we'll have for the rest of the parks.
I appreciate that. I also appreciate just the idea of some standardized, branding of our parks, and I think that's a noble undertaking also. So.
All right, any further discussion? So we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Jonathan to approve the sign for Sullivan Field. Let's go ahead and call the question.
Thacker, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
All right, next item is a presentation and request for a letter of support for the Middle Colorado Watershed Council grant application to the Colorado Water Conservation Board for the creation of a basin-wide integrated water management plan. So there'll be a presentation by the Middle Colorado Water Council, then we will allow public comment for anyone who would like to comment, and then we'll bring it back to council. Thanks.
Good evening, council members. My name is Lori Rink. I'm the Executive Director of the Middle Colorado Watershed Council. I'm here this evening to actually make a few requests of you, which are summarized in the letter that was placed at your seats just before the meeting began this evening. And I'll go ahead and summarize that. But I'll start out with my first request, and I would like to acknowledge the appreciation that the council has for Glenwood Springs' consistent and generous support of our organization over the years. It's because of the local support that we get from our communities that we've enjoyed successes and been able to grow the organization. So thank you for that. And to that end, I would like to request this evening of the council to consider for 2017 another donation for our general operating in the amount of $2,500, and that's consistent with the level of support that you have provided us for the past several years. So the second request that I would like to make is with regards to a project that we are hoping to undertake in 2018, which is an integrated water management planning process. The council, on behalf of the stakeholders in the Middle Colorado watershed, are preparing an application for submittal to the Colorado Water Conservation Board next month. And with that, the state will provide up to 50% of the funding, and then we're looking to our local roundtable, basin roundtable, to provide another 25% support. And then what the state looks for as it considers our application is a showing of community support for the work. And so this evening, we're requesting a $2,000 contribution from the city of Glenwood Springs for the year 2018. And then in addition to that, or instead of, we would also request your consideration of providing a letter of support for the application that goes in next month. And so in support of this request, I believe in your packet that we had submitted, you've got a 3-page flyer that provides a little bit of background on what integrated water management plans are. And then also a letter of support from the Glenwood Springs River Commission urging the council to consider our request for support. And so with respect to the 3 minutes that we've been allocated for this, I can stop there, or I have a presentation that I could provide, or simply answer questions.
Do you have a guesstimate as to how long your presentation would be?
It's about 10 minutes.
Is everyone good with that? Or do you want to just?
Does anybody have any key concerns on this?
You know, I guess my only concern, I have no concerns about the $2,500 for the matching contribution. I do have a concern about organizations coming outside the Financial Advisory Board grant cycle and asking for general operating funds. So that's the point of conversation.
Am I correct that we customarily provided these funds out of our water department? Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes. So that would be separate from our standard grant
Right.
request.
Okay.
So,
Alvin, was that a kind of a yes? Okay.
yeah.
Thought I saw you nod.
Okay, so, and am I also correct that although we provided $2,500 in past years, you're only requesting $2,000 this year? Or is it the $2,500 and the $2,000? Okay.
Correct.
I'm following, okay.
I have a quick question, because we're
adopting our budget at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Having an answer by November 2nd, is that too late for your process?
No, that is not.
Okay. So I
For
would
the 18th.
suggest we, yes, talk about this as part of the
Part of the
budget.
budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you guys don't have to give an answer right now.
Okay.
But for the 2,500, they would like an answer now. Because that's from Tuesday.
No, I think she said it would be okay, because the grant's due next month.
Yeah, the grant's in early November.
Yeah, but this one is different. To request approval of 2017 operations funding in the amount of 2,500. So that's a more immediate request. The 2,500 is a more immediate request,
So
and
the
the
to-
2,000 is for 2018. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So you're at, I'm sorry, I am confused.
Mhm.
So the 2,500 is out of 2017 funds as opposed to 2018 funds?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
then I would
And
suggest, yes,
did-
we
did
still
we-
talk about that and decide at the next meeting.
Right.
Did we not budget this in 2017?
I honestly do not know.
Okay, so we have, so it is budgeted, it's allocated, we just, okay, okay, thanks, Robin. Okay, so I think we're at least understanding what's being requested and what the timing
Let's
is.
decide tonight.
Um,
So Lori, can I ask you a question? You're talking about the middle Colorado River. Is there an upper and a lower region that you're looking at, or can you give us a sense of the boundaries of the middle Colorado River?
Sure, if I may, I'll just put this up here on the screen.
You just happen to have a map, right?
I do. Let's see. Okay, this is an overview of the watershed boundaries, and let's see here. Can I use that? Okay. And if you can follow my pointer here, the upstream boundary on the Colorado River main stem is at the Eagle Garfield County line, so that's at the head of Glenwood Canyon. And then it follows the river down here through Glenwood Springs, Newcastle, Silt, Rifle, Parachute, and then down to the town of DeBeck. So that's a distance of 75 miles. And it includes all of the tributaries within that stretch of river, with the exception of the Roaring Fork River, which is actually the biggest tributary. But the Roaring Fork Conservancy, as I'm sure you all know, does a great job with watershed health on that particular river. You're welcome.
So it does sound, if you would like to award the $2,500 tonight, you can.
I do have a question.
Okay, great, Kathy.
And and maybe this is a question for staff or for Robin. Why has this been traditionally funded from the water as opposed to the way we normally fund other grant requests?
I think historically it's because it related specifically, I think conceptually it related to the work that as a water supplier that we do. I think that was really the only reason, as opposed to treating it as a regular grant application like everybody else. It was just the correlation between it and water, our water department.
Because I guess I had sort of the same concerns that Jonathan had as far as, sort of going outside of our normal grant process to fund this. I mean, I guess I'm okay with it as is, but I'm just a little concerned if we get too many things going on outside of that process that it can chip away at what we've got going, so.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I would just, I guess I'd like to see, just because it's easier for me to keep track of everything in one bucket, to have this request come through the Financial Advisory Board next year. And also probably have the request come earlier in the year, because with like a month, 2.5 months left of the year, I'm kind of wondering, well, you know, you probably don't need it that bad if we're at the very end of the year. So I guess encourage you to make that request earlier next year, and potentially, if we agree, through the financial advisory board portion, unless there's a real good reason why we do it through this.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a number of these utility kind of related issues that we do fund outside of FAB. CORE, I believe, is funded through our electric department. Is Robin still here? He left, he was done.
You were correct.
And I think anything energy related, we are funding through our electric department. Anything water related, we're funding through, I believe there are some other organizations we fund through the water department. I can't name them right now, but there's a whole slew of water related organizations in terms of water quality, water rights, that kind of thing that we fund through our water department. And so, the challenge of putting all that back in, I think, for example, with CORE, I don't know what I can't recall off the top of my head, but I think we fund on the order of a fairly significant amount.
I believe you're correct.
And so that would take up all the FAB, so.
Well, and I totally get that. I guess my concern is that we don't have the same process. You know, we aren't requiring the same information. You know, financials, reporting, those kinds of things. So that's just.
I guess I'm just shooting from the hip here, but would it make sense, even though these are not funded from that one, our little pot of money that the FAB doles out for various nonprofit grants, would it make sense to have FAB evaluate these other?
It depends how you want to take FAB, because FAB itself, I think, wants to move more towards budget oversight and away from grant
And I'm
management.
not so concerned that they go through the FAB as much as that we follow a similar process.
A process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, like a process of an ask coming to us now for 2,500 for 2018, while we're doing, or before we do the budget, so that's actually budgeted and allocated for, not, the last quarter of the year.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so it seems like you have the issue of $2,500 out of this year's budget and $2,000 for a matching grant out of next year's budget. We can handle the $2,000 matching grant out of next year's budget at the next meeting, if you would like, kind of, so we can.
As part of our current budget process. Okay. All right. Any further questions?
Well, I just say that as I read the agenda item here, it doesn't say anything about a contribution of money. It talks about signing a letter of support and hearing the presentation. I mean, I'm good with the money, but I'm just pointing it out that to a layperson, you wouldn't know that you were spending your valuable time and energy coming before us also to ask for a little bit of money, so.
Thank you for pointing that out, and I'm,
And that's nothing you did, it's just something we kind of did, so.
Yeah.
it may have been a miscommunication on my part.
I think we were just rushing to get the agenda together.
Yep.
All right. Any further questions for Ms. Rink at this point? No? All right. Thank you. I'll, at this point, open it up for any public comment, if anyone from the public would like to comment on this item. All right. Seeing none, I will close public comment and bring it back to council. So I guess right now we are considering a motion, I would entertain a motion to award an amount of $2,500 for fiscal year 2017 to the Middle Colorado Watershed Council.
I would so move.
All right. Sure.
Do you want me to?
What?
Okay, you ready for me?
Sure.
So
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Todd and a second by Rick to approve $2,500 awarded to the Middle Colorado Watershed Council from the 2017 funds out of the water department. Any further discussion?
Just to comment really
Sure.
quickly. I will support this, because for one thing, I support what you're trying to do, and, but I would ask that next year that we try and get, a little bit more information and follow the process. And that's actually something maybe we need to discuss as far as a council, is how do we handle things that don't go through the discretionary or the tourism funds, so.
Okay. All right. Any further comments? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trucker, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamble, yes. Leahy, yes. Vornish, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
So do we deal with 2018 tonight or?
I think we're going to deal with 2018 as part of our budget process, which will be finalized at our next meeting, I believe.
And would you like for us to be present at the next meeting?
I could just let you know if you would like.
Okay,
You're always welcome.
that would be great. And then regarding the letter of support,
Oh,
is that
yes,
something
you were
the-
requesting a letter of support as well. Oops, sorry about that. So I would also entertain a motion to provide a letter of support. I'm trying to find that on the letter here. Does anyone see it?
On the agenda,
Is it?
first page of the agenda. You need some verbiage for the motion. 15.
There's a letter of support for River Commission.
For the creation of a basin-wide integrated water management plan, okay. And that's, okay, so I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign, as mayor, to sign a letter of support for the Middle Watershed Council grant application to the Colorado Water Conservation Board for the creation of a basin-wide integrated water management plan.
So moved.
Second.
I'm gonna take the easy one.
All right, so we have a motion by Todd and a second by Kathy to authorize myself as mayor to sign a letter of support for the Middle Colorado Watershed Council grant application to the Colorado Water Conservation Board for the creation of a basin-wide integrated water management plan. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trucker, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamble, yes. Leahy, yes. Vornish, yes. Motion passes.
All right. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yep.
We appreciate your support.
If you have not, could you send me a draft letter?
I will send you one of those, Deborah. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Good evening.
Yep. Okay, agenda item 16 is a Lova Trail budget request.
Good evening, everybody. Jeannie Goulet, Executive Director of Lova Trails. I'm here to ask for matching funds for a couple of grant efforts that the town of Newcastle is about to submit. I'm actually preparing them right now. They're due November 1st. 2 different planning grants, which combined, if we get them both, we will do surveying, mapping, planning, and just all the preliminary planning for the Lova Trail West. South Canyon West is what I'm calling it now. There's all these little divisions, but basically it's South Canyon to Canyon Creek. It's the last remaining segment of the South Canyon Trail that has not yet been designed. The long-term objective here is to get the design finished completely and have the plans ready for the next round of TAP grants, federal funds, CDOT and federal funds that'll be coming up in 2019. And that can be for construction. There's also a FLAP grant program, both of which require you to have complete plans. None of those programs pay for planning or engineering or anything like that. So Newcastle is being really bold and very proactive in this and have been building a coalition of support. Garfield County last week agreed to support this effort to the tune of $30,000. RAFTA last week also agreed to donate $10,000 in matching funds. So we have met the minimum match. However, any funding that we get, we'll just add to the total project budget. The estimate for this whole effort is going to be $350,000 for engineering, plans, design, mapping, environmental clearances, permitting, all of that planning process to be shovel-ready, basically. So this is the beginning of that process. And where there are 2 grants, one's to GOCO, the planning program, and one is state trails through Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Thanks, Jeannie. So just to be clear, you're requesting a commitment of $15,000 from Glenwood?
And letters of support.
And letters of support. So maybe we can get that in one motion.
Yeah, put that all in one.
Is that out of 17 or 18?
This would be from the 18 budget. And this is not something we have currently contemplated in our budget, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
However, I believe Steve, Conservation Trust Fund does have adequate reserves for this request, should you want to move forward with it.
Is that kind of what you're eyeing if
Yeah.
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
it's coming out of there?
All right, any further questions for Jeannie before I open it up for public comment? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I will close it to public comment, bring it back to council for discussion and a motion.
Just repeat my same, and I realize that these matching grants come up throughout the year, so there's no way that you can anticipate that, but I guess it would be nice to have a little more information going into these requests in the future. So maybe we can modify our grant request form to be more adaptable for these kinds of things.
Well, there's a difference between, I would say, operational
Well, this is true.
grants and matching
Yeah,
grants.
yeah. Well, this is, yeah, that's a good point, because this is a matching grant, correct? So, okay, but anyway, yeah.
But yes, if council would like a more formal process,
Or
We-
just maybe more information.
can work through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so anyway, that's my only comment. Thank you.
And who would this be given to?
Laura.
This would be, the town of Newcastle is the official applicant for both of these grants.
Okay.
So we
And
would actually be giving a grant to the town of Newcastle?
Well,
Or-
a commitment to match
Oh.
funds for a grant.
in the event that they are awarded the grants, yes.
And we talked about this briefly this morning, if we just have to pick section of the Lower Trail to concentrate on. If that's from Newcastle to Glenwood, as opposed to Glenwood to Newcastle, we just need to get it done.
And as Jeannie pointed out, the section from Glenwood to South Canyon has already been fully designed.
Yeah.
And so this would be a planning grant, is that correct? For the, getting that other section designed, so it would potentially further the whole project, so. Rick?
So is this the last section, Jeannie, to be designed then, for the entire trail from Glenwood to Newcastle? This would be it then?
The town of Newcastle has done a planning study identifying a preferred alignment from Newcastle to Canyon Creek. They have identified it, they're moving ahead with negotiating with landowners, and then we'll do the design of that trail. That's probably largely a town of Newcastle effort. This, though, yes, will get us through South Canyon, to the point where there's, no other alternative paths. I mean, once you're in Canyon Creek, you can ride or walk along Highway 6, you don't have to be on the interstate. This is to close that crucial link through South Canyon where there is no alternative mode for walking, biking, or anything besides being in a car at 65 miles an hour. So it's kind of like a missing link, yeah. And I just want to remind you all that there's a 5-year window, I think we're in year 2 of this 5-year window that the state of Colorado, because this trail was named on the governor's 16 priority list, those projects are all being prioritized by all the granting agencies, which include GOCO and state trails. So theoretically, we are taking advantage of, this elevated status for the next 3 more years, where they have several $1 million kind of earmarked for these prioritized projects. So we're trying to take advantage of that and, be strategic and try to get as much done and leverage as much money into the community as we can in these next 3 years.
Been a long time coming, huh?
Yes, it is. It'll be awesome when it's done.
All right. Todd?
So I would move to support the, to support the commitment to the town of Newcastle in the amount of $15,000 to support the a matching fund for the Logo Trail planning effort between Newcastle and Glenwood. Funds to be paid this year out of the Conservation Trust Fund, and also authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support.
I think the only thing I would suggest as an amendment to that motion is they'd be paid out of the 2018 funds. I think you said this year.
Oh, I thought it was going to be out of 2017.
2018.
Okay, I would agree to that amendment, so out of the 2018 Conservation Trust Fund. And a letter of support.
Right. All right. So we have a motion by Todd. Is there a second?
Second. Got it, Rick.
Okay, we have a motion by Todd and a second by Rick to approve a commitment of $15,000 from the 2018 Conservation Trust Fund to apply toward the local match requirement and overall grant effort to the town of Newcastle for the Logo Trail design between South Canyon and Canyon Creek. And authorize myself as mayor to sign a letter of support. Any further discussion? All right, let's go ahead and call that question.
Schwanker, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right, now we're up to agenda item 17, which is the Department of Natural Resources South Canyon Geotechnical Fire Mitigation Investigation Proposal.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, Tara Taffy with the Department of Natural Resources was not able to make it tonight. She had to catch a flight out of Denver this evening for other test sites they're doing. So in my limited technical vocabulary, I'll go ahead and pass on the information. Basically, the Colorado Department of Natural Resources, their Division of Reclamation, Mining, and Safety, are looking for permission to perform geotechnical investigation phase of the South Canyon East Underground Coal Mine investigation. And this is for the purpose of creating a natural soil seal along the site of the East-South Canyon coal seam fires. And the primary goal of this phase of the investigation is to perform a geotechnical investigation to identify locally available soils that can be used to construct this soil seal in lieu of having to purchase the soils and bring them in. So the next phase would be to actually excavate that material at and near the South Canyon site to perform the soil seal. And Tara with the with DNR is planning to present that whole plan to the council on November 2nd. This initial phase will include a quarter-acre site with 2 test pit sites digging down about 8 feet to bedrock. It's anticipated. Any vegetation that will have to be removed in order to access the sites will be revegetated. There's no public access to this area and it's not anticipated to have any impact to any public access with the gun club that is nearby. The contract work is be contracted out to Bowser Brothers Construction, who is happy to include the city as additionally insured if needed. They are anticipating to start work next week. It should take about a week for completion, and then they'll have a lot more information that they can present to council on the design and plan of that soil seal for those sites. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions? Deborah and I had a discussion on what that agreement for at least this phase of the site testing might look like. We felt we should at least present to the council, give you a chance to look over the proposal and answer any questions that you might have.
I think small projects like this have been going on.
Yeah, I know that the DNR has worked with Robin and Public Works in the past to do some soil sampling and different surveying of the South Canyon fires.
All right, any questions for Brian?
Brian, do you know, hasn't something like this been tried before?
They've done a number of surveys, and maybe Robin could probably speak to a little more of the history of different reclamation and mitigation project that they have done there at the site. They have not performed this design before, and really the purpose of this is to put about a 4-foot layer of soil along with a clay seal and rubble and rock topper on top of the lower area of the mine fire site in order to really starve out the oxygen supply to those fires. This will not eliminate the fire, but it will greatly reduce and mitigate that. But as far as what other project that they have done in the past,
we've been working with DNR on the South Canyon fire for 15 or 20 years. They do this all at their expense. It's no cost to us. Some of the mitigation that they've done before on the south side or on the east side, below the gun club, they inserted a bladder, inflated it, put down a rebar mat, poured a concrete cap on. They've done a lot of drilling and tried to put in curtain walls to stop the fire. The South Canyon fire is a very interesting sort of dynamic beast. There are places that if you stumble around out there long enough, you can find a lot of vents. You can hold a leaf in front of some of them and it will suck it out of your hand. I mean, it's a pretty interesting situation, but they've been doing a lot of different techniques. They've been monitoring, I think there's something like 50 coal seam fires in the state of Colorado. They've been spending a lot of time in South Canyon. So they're always trying to come up with something new, but this is very much like just trying to put a seal on. So,
okay. Any other questions for Robin or Brian? All right. So this isn't a request for any kind of funding, so the request here is simply to authorize the proposal to move forward on our property?
They just wanted an email. It is okay to move forward. We just kind of wanted to let you know what they were moving forward with.
This won't affect the trails, the trail.
No, coordination has happened with the Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association and our South Canyon Trail projects with the Gun Club. We've done utility locates with the Utility Notification Center of Colorado. They've done all their due diligence. They simply need a official authorization to proceed from us, and we felt that should come from council.
All right. Any other questions for Robin or Brian before I open it up to any public comment? Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion. And do we need a formal motion or just direction?
I think direction is fine. You guys are all okay?
Yeah.
All good?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that, I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but, nothing else has worked, but,
One never knows.
So just one comment, there won't be any use of anything other than physical material in this project, right? They're not going to be using any chemical base, experimenting that way?
For this phase of the project, it's simply a soil investigation.
Right.
To the composition of the soil, the condensity impacts and different things like that. So no, this is simply dig a big hole and take it to the lab and see what we have and if it's appropriate for the design of the seal. As far as the seal, no, at least from what I've understood, and this might be a better question when they present on November 2nd, they are just using natural materials, hopefully in the local area. Just a 4-foot soil seal, clay and rock, no artificial chemicals or anything like that.
So when you said this phase of the project, you mean what we're looking at here is one phase and there may be other phases that come after this, possibly?
Yeah, this is just an investigative phase to look at the soil, whether it works for the seal.
The second phase would then be to, if the soil, I'm assuming, meets their specifications, the second phase would be to probably request that they can actually just install the cap.
Yeah, that will be, so if the soils locally work for it, then the next phase will be much more invasive and involved. If you think about it, over the area, 4 feet over, I'm not even sure how many acres that is. That is a lot of material that has to be excavated out. The roads up to the coal seam fire would have to be improved a little bit for trucks to haul that amount of material up there. There would be some impact, and we would have to look at access to the gun club and things like that at that point. But this part's real simple.
Okay. Thank you.
And they'll be here, second meeting in October with
Yep.
better explanation.
Yes.
Second meeting, or first meeting in November.
First meeting in November.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so you have your direction?
Yes.
Okay. So moving on, agenda item 18 is a discussion regarding the 27th Street right-of-way acquisition.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council. I'm going to put up a map that you guys already have in your package, or your packets. There's a lot to that. This is really a request to authorize the right-of-way acquisition, including the appraisals that are necessary for the right-of-way acquisition. This is a right-of-way map that's been developed for the project. There are, as you can see from this map, there are a number of parcels that are affected. Those are in the striped designation there. You can see the Rivers Restaurant in green, Cottonwood Landing in red, the car dealership in the brown areas, and then the bank there, Mesa National Bank in the purple. The actual areas that need to be acquired or to have temporary easements are shown as solid areas. So, for instance, for the car dealership, there are just really very small areas right at the that intersection there, South Grand and 27th Street, on the south corner there. Similarly with the bank and with the Rivers Restaurant, I think that might be one of the larger parcels that needs to be acquired for the project. There are some temporary easements. Those are indicated as TE with a number behind them. Those would be just affected during the construction. The current estimate for both temporary easements and permanent right-of-way acquisitions and easements, there's one temporary easement or one easement for a utility crossing, is about in the order of $60,000 spread among those parcels. And we're estimating another $30,000 at this point for appraisals, both for the property owner and for the city. So a total of about $90,000 that would need to be transferred from the street tax to the ANI fund to allow for this right-of-way acquisition. It is a critical phase in our project, and we can't complete, or we can't
bid the project without the right-of-way acquisition. So we're requesting your approval of the right-of-way acquisition phase.
Thanks, Terry.
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions for Terry? Ms. Parch?
So is the 90,000 that we're talking about, that's out of 2017 funds?
Do we have any landowners that are there any issues here that are significant, or, I mean, how heavy-handed is this, I guess?
You know, there have been 2 or 3 public meetings that have been held on site or here at City Hall. There is one owner at the Racket Club who's very concerned about the removal of some existing trees that are kind of blocking the road for them at this point in time. And we've talked to them about putting in, new trees to try and help that, block that condition. The road is, I don't think it's actually becoming closer, but they are very concerned just because because of the construction, we have to remove the existing vegetation. So at some point, we may hear from them. But it is, in their case, it's just a temporary easement to allow for the construction next, adjacent to the Racket Club there. So that's the only issue that I'm aware of.
We did pick the design that had the least impact.
We did.
And I guess I would say, if it's a couple $1,000 more to get more mature vegetation for that specific landowner, that would be something I'd be supportive of.
We agree, and I think we've talked about different ideas with them out there, and I think as we go through this process, we'll try and finalize hopefully something that will help them feel better about the project.
Are those existing trees elms, do you think?
I believe so. I think that they're not high-quality trees, but, everybody, feels
Right.
attached to whatever vegetation they can see,
Right.
so,
Yeah, I would just,
sorry.
I know we've had this discussion in the past, but I would like to see as much as possible replace every elm tree we can with a different quality tree.
Yeah, if we can, put in, I think, any type of pine tree would offer a better barrier. So to the degree we can get a caliper in there that will make a difference, we'll do that.
Okay. Any other questions for Terry? All right, thanks, Terry. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to council for discussion and a motion. Kathy?
Well, first of all, this, as Terry mentioned, is a critical piece to a critical project for our city. The bridge, this 27th Street Bridge, has long been an issue and continues to be an issue, and we are moving forward with trying to do something with that. And so this is a key piece in order to move forward. And so if you're ready, I would go ahead and make a motion. I would move to approve the transfer of funds from the street tax to the A&I fund to support right-of-way acquisition for the 27th Street Bridge project.
All right, we have a motion by Kathy. Is there a second?
Second?
A motion by Kathy and a second by Todd to,
Do I need to specify an amount?
request is
within the
for
amount.
$90,000.
It said estimated 90,000, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you need a not to exceed or if 90 is gonna do it.
Let's go with the not to exceed at 90. I believe we're going to be fine at that number.
Okay, so for not to exceed 90,000, so.
All right, so the motion is to, go ahead.
I'll go if you reread that.
Sure, I would move to approve the transfer of funds from the street tax to the A&I fund to support the right-of-way acquisition for the 27th Street Bridge project in an amount not to exceed $90,000.
I'll second that.
Okay. So we have a slightly amended motion by Kathy and a second by Todd to approve the transfer of $90,000 of funding from the street tax fund into the NI tax fund for the purchase of right-of-way related to the 27th Street Bridge project. Any further discussions?
I just think the public should know, who's ever watching and out there, that, Ms. Partridge, am I correct in saying this will only be down 1 week for this project?
That is correct. You know, that was part of our design and our selection process. You know, when we determined that keeping it on the current alignment was the best choice, we then thought of ways that we could do this in the shortest amount of time possible. And so this bridge will be constructed as a slide. It'll be constructed offline just to the south, and then when we're ready and when the foundations are ready, we'll move that bridge back onto the foundations in the current alignment. So it will be a week or less.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great project. It'll be fun to watch.
All right, any further discussion?
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trogger, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. All right, next item, next two items are some cleanup items related to the annexation and zoning.
Actually, we have a budget.
Oh, never mind. I
Yeah,
just,
it's like it's a
I
cleanup.
was gonna just jump right over that.
It's a cleanup item.
Yeah. We don't need to do the budget. Okay, sorry. Okay, next item is a public hearing regarding the proposed 2018 budget. Do you have a presentation?
There is not a presentation.
There's not a presentation.
I believe there is just we are opening the
Opening
budget
it for public comment. Okay, so the budget has been, the draft budget has been published in our packet here since Friday. Is that correct? Has it been available to the public?
For 10
Right,
days.
For 10 days?
as is required.
Okay.
We figured you'd had enough of the budget over probably the 20 hours we've spent talking about it.
Is that
It's
all?
so much fun.
Feels longer than that.
Could have been longer than that.
It's gotta be longer.
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't hit all the budget meetings, and it's been 20 hours for
Yeah.
me, so.
All right.
That's what you build this for.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Actually, I built it for 25.
All right. So I would open up to the public, to anyone who would like to comment on our 2018 budget. Our first hearing on the budget will be the first meeting in November, is that
No,
correct?
this is the hearing on,
It's
the
the
public
hearing.
hearing on the budget.
No, I
You
mean
will
our first reading, I'm sorry.
Right,
Don't we have to
so-
adopt it by ordinance?
Yes, the accepting of the budget.
You'll be adopting the budget at the next meeting.
Okay, so we don't have to adopt it by ordinance? Okay. Okay. All right then. So we'll be it'll be on the agenda for being adopted the first meeting in November. No one's jumping up to talk, so, all right, we'll bring it back to council.
Now you're on the cleanup item.
What's that?
Now you're on the cleanup.
Yep.
If I may, first of all, I would like to commend Mr. Boyd for his hard work and the finance staff for pulling this budget together. I think it's reflective of our needs and our wishes. It may not be perfect for everyone, but I think it is a good budget. And I would also like to thank council for their hard work in pulling together and getting this done. So that's all I have to say, except that you need a motion, right?
No.
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 Open hearing.
This is
Okay.
just for,
I just wanted to say thank you. If I could, I just wanted to say thank you to Steve and Yvette also. You guys spent many, many, many hours on this. Many.
more than 20.
I am so very happy to have you both.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm really glad I didn't have to do it this year.
Don't forget all our department heads. They
Yeah.
had a lot to do with all this.
Yeah, I
and
would-
our department heads as well. They were
Yes, I
very
would-
patient.
I would second the comments by both Kathy and Deborah to Steve and Yvette. I appreciate all of your work. I appreciate all of staff's work, council's time and effort on this. I know this was not a simple budget. We have a lot more needs than we do money, and that's not even considering all the wants, so, that we have. So, I would also just commend everyone for our work in getting to this point, and, that's all I got. So, all right. So, moving on now to the cleanup items. We have two ordinances. We need to take them one at a time.
We do need to take them one at a time. They both are technically public hearings. Ordinance number 18 is the annexation and disconnection of that property that you saw a meeting ago or 2 meetings ago in the land use application, cleaning up those boundaries and getting the right-of-way in place for the eventual South Bridge. Is ordinance number 18, and ordinance number 19 is for those portions that got annexed into the city as a result of the ordinance just in front of it, formally adopting zoning for that portion, and having the zone map updated. So I can answer questions on either one, but you do need to take them separately.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Carl on either ordinance 18 or ordinance 19? All right, we're a talkative bunch tonight. So, is there anyone in the public who would like to comment on ordinance number 18, series of 2017, and ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, annexing to and disconnecting from the city certain owned land located adjacent to the Glenwood Springs Municipal Airport? This is the first reading. Seeing no one wanting to make public comment, I'll bring it back to council for a motion.
I move to, all right, thanks. I move to approve ordinance 18, series of 2017, an ordinance of City Council from the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, annexing to and disconnecting from the city certain owned lands located adjacent to the Glenwood Springs Municipal Airport.
Second. All right, we have a motion by Jonathan and a second by Rick to approve ordinance 18, series of 2017. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Trogger, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, at this point, I would open public comment for ordinance number 19, series of 2017, and ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, zoning a parcel of land annexed into the city and adjacent to the municipal airport to industrial or light industrial and office zoning. All right, seeing no one wanting to make public comment, I will close the public comment and bring it back to council for a motion.
I move ordinance 19, series of 2017, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, zoning a parcel of land annexed into the city and adjacent to the municipal airport to IL Light Industrial and Office.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion by Jonathan and a second by Rick to approve ordinance number 19, series of 2017. Any further discussion? Let's call the question.
Trogger, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
All right, now at this point, we're up to ordinance number 20, series of 2017, and ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, adopting as amended the 2015 editions of certain international and national codes regarding construction, building, and regulation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm here tonight presenting ordinance 20 series 2017 regarding adoption of the building codes for 2015. The codes that staff is proposing include amendments that were previously included in the adoption of the 2009 codes, and also including some amendments that were adopted by Garfield County. There are a number of communities in the region that are on the 2015 code, including Aspen, Pitkin County, Snowmass, Eagle County, Garfield County, and the other folks around us are on different codes, although I understand that Basalt is also on a similar timeline to us in terms of adopting the 2015 codes. With that, the building official and the fire chief are here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for? Hey, Rick,
Good evening, Council.
how are you doing?
With that, I'm good. Thanks. Any questions? I'm here.
Yeah.
I have kind of a loaded question for you.
Shoot.
But I don't know how far you've gone through this code book, because I have not. I'm just wondering if you see anything in there just right off the bat that's like, kind of like, oh, wait a minute, what about, what about this in our community? What about, does that work for our community? I know these books are national deals, and sometimes there's things in there that
Right.
trip locals up.
And that's what we're looking at is, our climate, our market, our unique culture, and making sure that we're looking out for our people
Yeah.
and adopting this big blanketed international code
Right.
series of books. And the only one that kind of spooked us was the energy code. The 2015 kind of ramps up the requirements of our values and other things to a higher degree than the 2009 did, which was already very stringent, very good energy code. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, that is why we've kept with the 2009 energy book, and are proposing to adopt all the others in the 2015 series, except for the energy one.
Okay.
Yeah, so that kind of is a direct to your question, Todd. No.
Okay.
We've poured through what our other communities around us have done. Garfield being the nearest. Carbondale and Newcastle are still on older cycles, so we couldn't study them up. And Garfield has also stayed on the 2009 energy code. So we're kind of with them in that thinking.
Okay, so that was kind of your at least your initial look
Yeah.
at this. I hate to think you read every single page of
No.
this thing. Maybe you have.
That's not possible, These are the greatest code minds on the globe that have, been continually tweaking these books decade after decade. And we'd be egotistical to think we could do any better. But yeah, we do have to look at it for what is our local climate, market, as I said, and culture. So that's what we've done.
I have just a question, and this may be for Rick or maybe for Gary, or maybe both of them. By adopting this, it protects our insurance ratings for, and the amount of money that our residents pay for insurance based on those ratings. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay.
That's true. We are rated, and by not going to the latest codes, we have lost a couple points. And we've got time now to get to the 15 codes and to not suffer any lower rating with the insurances.
Do you know, I'm sorry if you were still answering that question. Maybe, I don't know if anyone can answer. Is this a time-sensitive thing?
A little bit, yeah.
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 We'd like to keep working through it. There may be some comment over the next couple of weeks. This is first reading. Really like to get it done here. Given your direction earlier tonight, there might be a couple of tweaks that we need to address regarding like short-term rentals and things like that, but we just need to keep kind of pushing forward if we can.
Okay.
The other reason that we push to adopt the latest code cycle, like a lot of our neighboring communities have, is for our builders and for our architects and our engineers. It's difficult for them to work in one valley where people are on different code cycles, and they're constantly designing and building to slightly different requirements. So yes, it's for the insurance reason, but also for all of our local tradespeople and design professionals as well. I think Jen touched on it, and I didn't know if you understood, but there's 10 building departments from Rifle to Aspen, including Garfield, Eagle, and Pitkin County. 5 have adopted the 15, and 5 are still on later code build cycles like ourselves, so I think we're in the perfect position. We're not late, we're not early. And we've been given a chance to look at what those other entities have done and what they're spooked by. And there's been really very little alarms except for that energy code. The 2009 is a good one. The 2015 is a little over our heads for our market.
Thanks, Rick. Any further questions for Rick?
I just noticed on line 1 of the first paragraph, we've got a typo there. We might want to clean that up.
Okay. Thanks.
Of the ordinance?
Yeah, of the ordinance itself.
And ordinane.
Oh.
The ordinance.
That was me, Polish malt. True to my heritage.
I'll have a lot of fun teasing John about that. Was working late hours the last couple of nights to get this into the packet for you guys, so.
All right.
Yes, I was going to say thank you, Jen, thank you, Rick, thank you. This is a ton of work, Fire Chief. John,
Gary
I
and
don't know
I,
how much time John spent on it,
A fair amount.
so.
we've all been pouring through it. An effort to get it right.
All right, well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, at this point, I'll open up for public comment. Seeing no public comment, I will close public comment and bring it back to council for a motion.
A motion to approve ordinance number 20, series of 2017, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Glenwood Springs, Colorado, adopting as amended the 2015 editions of certain international and national codes regarding construction, building, and regulation.
Second.
We have a motion by Jonathan and a second by Catherine to approve ordinance number 20, series of 2017. Any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question.
Yeah, you do, actually. It's just an answer to the question.
I did it.
You could move to, there are counties that don't have any codes.
I'm trying to be a team player.
They're not counties you might want to live in.
Or he, yes.
Proctor, yes. Golds, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Word, yes. Motion passes.
All right. Yeah, okay.
Do I have to do everybody's job?
If I may.
Actually, you know what, I would like to tell Rick, we did receive a, this is probably, I should reserve this for council comments, we did see a really cool letter of commendation from a gentleman that you made a special trip to on Friday, a day that you're not normally working. So I hadn't met you or put a name to the face, but thank you for that. That kind of stuff is what really sets apart our city probably from a lot of other municipalities. So it's everybody got it, and I think everybody's impressed.
Thanks for doing
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
All right, so we're up to the city manager's report.
Yes. I have 4 things. The first is I'm looking for a council volunteer to come to the National EPA Brownfields Conference, December 5th through 7th. So really like 4th through 8th by the time you get home. It's in Pittsburgh.
Everyone's looking at that guy with the beard.
Pittsburgh, December. Sounds
Awesome, it's totally awesome. It's just like Cancun.
Costs the city more to get me there than Cancun, though.
It's a beautiful city. It makes the EPA very happy when we bring, it's like a big dog and pony show. We have an area wide that's very important to them, and they like representation, and plus I'd like to brainwash one of you.
I would be happy to go. If no one else is.
Does it have to be the weakest of the brains to brainwash?
Wow.
Brainwash.
You guys are going after.
Well, it's it's a dog and pony and woolly mammoth show.
Are you the dog or are you the pony?
I'm the woolly mammoth.
I don't think the training worked today.
I have to say, I think they picked up the wrong things out of the training.
I would be happy to go, Mr. Gamba.
Well, thank you, Mr. Godus. Mayor Gamba, right. Okay, all in favor of having Mr. Godus attend the, Councilman Godus, attend the EPA Brownfield Conference in Pittsburgh in December.
All the time of year.
Yeah, just voice note would be great.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, all opposed?
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I think that Brownfield thing is really, really cool. So I'm looking forward to bringing back some information.
Can I ask a quick question on that? Something I read earlier today, that it said by accepting the grant, we're also now in some type of historical preservation.
Section 106.
Section 106, and I was like, what is that? Do you know?
Was that from Bill Kite?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
sort of
Yeah, that
a
was
historical
the-
look
yeah.
at, you know, the use of the land and
I just was,
what implications it has for
It
development.
doesn't really have anything for us in
No.
terms of,
Yeah, it was the first I heard of it.
You know, the Historical Preservation Commission has some interest in the confluence and the railroad history. So there
Yeah.
might be some railroad history.
well, yeah, there's, I mean, on the federal project that is going on, we had to do some 106 mitigation.
okay, that's what it was, this 106
Yeah.
historical stuff.
Yeah, and it's just,
We don't have a historical sewer plant.
It's
do we?
done.
no,
Yeah.
well, we may, but,
Not one that anyone's gonna make us keep.
Didn't want to.
right, no, really, you know, it's that historical and cultural value piece. I mean, if some stuff is identified, it's just something that you might want to keep in mind, but unless we're funding a major project,
Should
with
we?
federal funding.
It's planning dollars.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those
No.
poles on the mountain that are the old Holly Quarry, those don't have any historic designation, correct? Up on the mountain?
No.
Because they're part of our brownfield.
Right, yeah, no, and that's, I mean, all of that stuff, really the only time that honestly gets seriously triggered is if you have federal funds coming into a project or if you are under federal oversight. So this is a planning grant, any of the projects we're likely to undertake, we'll make the decision at that time whether it's essentially a federalized project because of where the grant funding is coming from, or the funding is coming from.
But even if it was a federalized project, I know, for example, like a railroad grade itself is considered a historical element. Would a hole in the ground be considered a historical?
It potentially could be, but a lot of times all that may mean is that the mitigation that you might do is that you document its existence, right? And then you go on with your development, which is a little bit of like what happened in the Y area. There's documentation that it was there. Historic inventory, it doesn't stop the project, that may be the only mitigation you have to do.
Okay, good. All right, so that was one item.
Okay. For those of you who do not read my emails, Todd, we got a $500,000.
It's Mr. Leggett.
He's like, I'm reading it now.
We got a $500,000 FMLD grant for the 27th Street Bridge.
I
So-
read that.
Okay, very good.
Is that something we're happy about?
The what?
Are we happy about 500,000 or are we hoping it'd be?
Well, they only had $1 million to give away in that
Oh,
grant
yes.
item, so we got half of
Killed
what
it.
they were going to give away. So yes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's always good to get the most money.
How long? do
2
those-
years.
2 years. You have 2 years to actually spend the money.
That was great.
Along those lines, we have also thrown our names in to be a Main Street Small Business Resolution. So it's a TV series, I guess it's the 3rd season.
Oh, really?
If you win, you get $500,000 and like lots of promotion. Publicity.
Wow.
So I would not assume we're going to win, but Matt Ward heard about it, Sustainable Strategy, so they just said, do you want to do this? It'll take us 3 minutes to put in the application, so I said, yes. Okay. Any kind of attention, promotion is a good thing. That's it. I did, but we already.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So I only really have 3.
All right.
Okay.
One is, we are gonna have a very detailed and complicated executive session at the next meeting regarding some water rights issues. My suggestion, sitting council members have some background on the CRCA implementation issues, and you guys do not. I guess I'm suggesting we might want to get together and have a conversation before we get to that meeting, maybe sometime next week. I can do it 2 of you at a time or one-on-one, but I feel like there's just some background, baseline background information that would make that larger conversation a lot easier, because it's a lot to absorb and there's a lot of history there. It'd probably take us half an hour to 45 minutes, if you didn't ask any questions. I'm looking at you, Jonathan. Oh no, you don't get any more time.
She gave me an order.
Anyway, in any case, I don't know if you want me to have my paralegal reach out to you, or if you want to reach out to me, whichever is easier. I can have Angelique start chasing you down if that works better. Okay, that's one. Second one is, we have a really strange purchasing code. So we received only one bid today for the MOC repairs that really need to get done. Because of that, underneath our current purchasing code, we can't even open that and look at it because we only got one bid. We're not going to get any more bids. We need to get moving forward on this work. I'm really asking you guys for some leeway tonight to approve opening that bid and moving forward if it's within budget on that work, because it needs to get done. The weather's changing. It's 2 weeks to our next meeting before I could put in a sole source resolution on, or we'd have to rebid it. I know it's a little out of the ordinary, but it is, it's a budgeted item at $50,000. If it's over that when we open it, which we don't think it will be, I'd come back to you. Yeah, well.
It's an email.
It's an email, but Ricky won't let either Robin or I look at the email to archive it. So anyway, I'm asking for a little bit of leeway, if that works for you guys, if somebody would make a motion to allow that to happen.
I would make a motion to,
Allow us to accept and open a bid for repair work at the MOC, and if it's within budget, authorize moving forward on that work.
I would make a motion to what he just said.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the city to open a single bid for the MOC work, and provided that it is within budget, to proceed with the work.
And just, we are going to suggest we change that part of the code.
Yeah, it's just really awkward when this happens, and we have so few contractors on certain types of projects, so anyway, sorry, I interrupted your vote.
No, that's all right.
That on my part.
Is there any further discussion? Let's go ahead and call the question on that.
Trevor, yes. Goldish, yes. Gamba, yes. Leahy, yes. Voorhees, yes. Motion passes.
That was it for you, Carl?
That was it for me.
Okay, one more second. I'm sorry.
What's that?
I need one more, I need to go back.
Okay.
We wanted to know if you wanted to set up a special meeting to do the arts interviews, the arts and culture interviews, because there are going to be about 20 applicants next meeting. We're going to discuss how you want to do the interviews, but to actually do them on a regular council day, if you're going to interview all 20 people, will not work. So, now I'm not asking for dates or times, just permission for us to start organizing that if you're okay with it.
Because I'd like to get moving on that. I think people are wondering what's going on with that, so I would be.
That generally worked? Okay. Jen will be there that day.
Are we going to
Not
be
me.
developing some common sorts of questions for all 20 people?
That's what we're hoping to do at the next work session. But I think to have it during a council day, that would be all you were going to do.
I think we just lock them in a room and,
A draw.
what's that?
A draw off.
Well, I just figured, it's like a free-for-all, and we're, the 7 that survive, and
Like survival.
anyway, that's a bad way to select them. Never mind, these are arts people, not something else, so.
Boy, our training today was awesome. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you putting that together, Deborah.
Okay, are we done with those reports?
Yes.
Okay, I did receive some correspondence here that I actually have a question perhaps for our attorney on. It's received a letter from Jeffrey Wilson, Special Counsel or Coalition Coordinator for the reauthorization of the State Lottery Division by the Colorado General Assembly. Do you know anything about that? They're asking us for a resolution, sorry, just one second, let me find where the request is in here. Adopting a resolution reauthorizing the lottery division in 2018. Know anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just pass it on to us and we'll take a look.
Okay. All right, so.
If it's coming to you, it'll be coming to all of our meeting clients if you're getting it, so.
Okay.
We'll take a look and go from there.
Give that back to you. All right. That's all the correspondence I have. Council reports on boards, committee, and commission meetings. Anybody?
I made them all. Nothing earth-shattering. I would like to defend myself, though. I went quickly back through November, that's not it, but opened every one of them. I just had to defend myself real quick. Didn't open all of them, but everyone from Deborah, I opened. And I only went through October, I'm sorry, we're in October. So I went back to October. Yeah, no. I went back to this month, and I opened every one of them.
All right.
Not just tonight, but before.
Thank you.
So I would just state really briefly that in terms of the work that we do with other groups, last night I was in Rifle and made a joint presentation with Erica Sparhawk on the Garfield Clean Energy Board and trying to convince our neighbor community to sort of increase their participation as monetized by 2018 donation. Very well received. I asked any of them if they wanted to join us tonight, and obviously none did. But wanted you to know that contact had been made.
Okay. Great. I think our last Transportation Commission meeting was a joint meeting with the council at our last meeting, and so you guys were all here. I don't have to report on that. The last RAFTA board meeting, I think you've already received a report on as well, that at this point there seems to be unanimous support, or at least significant majority, supermajority support for our proposed modified IGA on 8th Street. That will come before the RAFTA board at the meeting in November. Was there anything else at the RAFTA board meeting? It was of any importance?
No, the ACP was put off until potentially even January, I think. We're working on comments on the latest draft that Aspen commented on of our draft.
Yep. All right.
Just add on to that, I would, again, and I think I've mentioned this before, we all have, but I would just like to commend the job that RAFTA has done for Glenwood through this, through the bridge project, the bus service. They have really stepped up and have done a fabulous job. I know it's been a little frustrating for some of the drivers making their way through an ever-changing roundabout at 6th and Laurel. And sometimes they go into it not knowing exactly which way they need to go. And they have, through the whole thing, they have been, almost every driver has been absolutely wonderful, courteous, and they have really gone out of their way, and I just would like to publicly thank them for their effort, and to thank the drivers and the operations staff of RAFTA for that. I'd also, and I meant to do this when we did the budget thing, I forgot the work that the Financial Advisory Board has done on the budget, and I really do appreciate their effort on that as well. The only other thing I went to was the P&Z work session, which we were talking about the development code, and P&Z is making a recommendation that we take our time and do this right, and we discussed that earlier as well, so. That's it, I think.
Parks and Rec is doing priorities for the next several years. Now, Fire Board, we need to go before the voters in 2018 and get an extension of that bond, so we can fight fires and EMS and everything else Gary does. The airport, I missed the September meeting, but in April, we had the community airport celebration niner thing, community days, airport days. And I guess they had 500 people and raised $5,000 and gave away 120 rides. And it was a really big success. Couldn't find enough places for people to park. Those are my boards.
Anyone else? No? All right, we're adjourned.
Before 8 o'clock, Carl.
That sounds good to me. Where are you going, Rex? All right. Good. Viva la revolución. Okay. Yeah, Ken and I really want to go walk the Camino de Santiago